Welcome, come on in. The format here will be a journaling exercise. So if you need a moment to grab something to journal with, you can also just use your device, whatever is going to work best. But now might be a good time if you need to grab anything. I designed this exercise to not take up the whole time. So the second part should be a chance for us to discuss what we've encountered. Like I said, this is an exercise for discovering your parts that really want you to do IFS well and learning how to detect them, unblend them, work with them. So this will be nice as a way to practice that. So I think this is probably more or less everybody at this point. While we're going through this, I'm going to try to go with what I think is the right pace because we have so many folks. But if you have any questions about the steps that I'm providing, feel free to raise your hand digitally. In the meantime, if you could stay muted, just so we're not surprising people with sudden noises. My dogs might start barking at some point, so I'll be muting myself between steps as well. But yeah, I think that's more or less everything. Before I start getting into what we're doing, I'm also going to, I have a handout for the exercise itself. I'm going to be reading these parts aloud, one step at a time. And I'm also going to be copying and pasting each step into the chat. So you shouldn't need the handout that I just put in the chat. But if you want that, and I also want to keep it for future reference, it's okay. So I've got that there for you. Before we get into it, does anyone have any questions about how this is going to work? Cool. So, little intro here. I'm going to copy and paste this into the chat as well. It's a pretty long, oh, it's not even going to let me do the whole thing. So you may have noticed that as you continue to learn the parts work model, you pressure yourself to do it, quote unquote, the right way. So for example, you may feel overwhelmed by the blending you experience with your parts. And then you get upset once you realize how overwhelmed you felt. That might be an experience that some of you have had, where you think I should just be able to unblend more easily. Or you may be so caught up in the idea of being calm or compassionate that you unintentionally shut down parts with other emotions, like anger or fear. The pressure you feel to do IFS the right way comes from parts of you. These parts have good intentions, but they can slow us down, confuse, or even frustrate us. They are also very good at camouflaging themselves. Some parts, once we locate them, are clearly serving as what we call self-like parts. That is, we thought that we were leading from self, when in reality we're actually being led by that part. And that's why unblending and identifying an unblending can take some extra practice, take some extra work. So this exercise is designed to help you notice and unblend from parts like this. They may be self-like in nature. You might also discover parts that don't act like or believe that they're self, but they still have opinions about doing IFS correctly. Maybe they are highly thinking parts that get in the way of accessing your feelings. So once you've found the part and started to unblend from it, then you can learn how to work with it and develop a positive relationship with it. So it's just a slightly more expanded version of what I had already said here, but I wanted to provide that. So step one for our journaling exercise here. This will give us this may be a few minutes because of all of the copy and pasting I'm going to be doing. If you've done the parts work practice group before, this will probably look familiar. So before you begin this exercise, rate your level of access to self-energy. You will be asked to notice how your self-energy shifts throughout this exercise. And if you like, you can use the following self-energy scale as a way of coming up with a rating that feels right for how you're doing right now. This is a scale that we've designed for other parts work exercises. So on a scale of 1 to 5, you could think of 1 as no access to self-energy. Your thoughts may be critical, panicked, and overwhelmed. Your emotions might be despairing, insecure, and frustrated. Somatically, you might feel in your body constricted, tense, or drained. Your energy might feel fragmented, shut down, or blocked. And just your overall state of being might be reactive, guarded, or disconnected. So those are some of the words we use when we're thinking of, yeah, probably around a 1 out of 5. 2 could be considered having some access to self-energy. Your thoughts are unsure, questioning, and cautious. Your emotions are nervous, tentative, and restless. Somatically, you're feeling slightly uneasy or jittery. Energetically, your energy is intermittent. You have like a cautious flow. Your overall state of being might be labeled uncertain or wavering. A 3 out of 5 would be sufficient access. So your thoughts are insightful, accepting, or optimistic. Your emotions might feel trusting, steady, or encouraged. Somatically, you feel comfortable and relaxed. Your energy can feel even and accessible, and your being is grounded and adaptable. 4 out of 5 could be ample access. Your thoughts are intuitive, appreciative, generous. Your emotions are feeling loving, confident, harmonious. Somatically, your body feels calm, vibrant, and rejuvenated. Your energy feels smooth and abundant. Your state of being is engaged, integrated, or content. When I do my own self-energy rating, I don't feel 4 very often, but maybe once a week if I'm rating at a good time. 5 is, I think Bill jokes about this as like the once in 10 year feeling. This is what we'd call peak access to self-energy. Your thoughts are spacious, still, and deeply wise. Your emotions are blissful, unconditional love. You feel radiant joy. Somatically, your body feels expansive, buoyant, profoundly still. Your energy feels infinite and seamlessly connected, and your being is just transcendent, fully present, and authentic. That's probably along the lines of what a lot of people feel when they describe as spiritual experiences. You can also use decimal points. Sometimes I'm a 2.5 just because 2 and 3 are quite right. But so if you need, I'll give you a moment here just to think through and feel through to see what rating out of 5 feels right for your self-energy at this moment. I'll give you a minute and please let me know if you have any questions. Strong 3, nice. Okay. So step 2, how do you feel about your current level of self-energy? Do you wish your self-energy was higher right now?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah. Are we going to do this exercise by ourselves?
Yes. So,
Just
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we're
this
reading
is
and answering. Okay.
yeah. I'm encouraging everyone to silently journal, and then we'll have a chance to discuss what we noticed after the exercise is over.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. I may have already said this, but given the number of people in the group, I'm just going to trust my instincts on when it's time to go on to the next step. But please feel free to slow me down, or if you need anything at all. But I'm going to move on to step 3 here. And these next few steps, these are questions that I came up with for this exercise, specifically for this conference. So it's possible that any of these questions I wrote are maybe a little too closed. If you find any information that's coming up for you that feels a little outside of the scope of what exactly I'm asking, that's totally fine. Feel free to be creative and just notice what comes up for you. Cool. Thank you. So step 3, since you first started practicing parts work, what are 1 or 2 important lessons you have learned about the process? Are there any specific aspects or techniques from parts work that you really enjoy doing? At step 4 here, is there anything in particular you've been hoping to get out of the conference today? Perhaps there are certain questions you hope to find answers for, or a specific shift in your skill set or in your state of being. Step 5, how would you like parts work to affect the way you interact with people or the world around you? I'll also add, or the way that you interact with yourself. What would ideally shift in those interactions? I just want to check in real quick before I move to the next step, especially for those on video or if anyone else wants to use reactions, just with like a show of thumbs, like how are we feeling about the pace right now? Is it feeling okay? Okay, perfect. Thanks, everybody. Cool. So, step 6. The questions up until now have been designed to help you notice if you have any kind of agenda when it comes to using parts work. I have an extra or in there that's not supposed to be there. Any kind of agenda when it comes to using parts work. You may feel like there are certain ways you should or must be using parts work in your life, or certain experiences you should be having with your parts. Having an agenda is not necessarily a bad thing. Right now, we're just trying to notice if any agenda is there. Anytime we discover that we have an agenda or a need of some kind, that's usually a signal that a part of us is present and influencing us to have that agenda. However, a part with an agenda can potentially confuse the parts work process if it blocks you from accessing other parts. So that's why I think this exercise is important. So the actual question for step 6, take a moment now that you've answered these previous questions, take a moment to write down any agendas you are noticing internally right now. There may be more than one. It is also possible that you will not notice any agenda right now. And if you don't notice anything, I'll try to help you out with that in step 7. So I'll give everybody a couple minutes here with this.
Would you call a part that says, hurry, 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 an agenda?
Yeah,
Do it.
I would say, yeah, it's an agenda to hurry. Yeah. And again, it might not be a bad thing that it's there. We're just noticing. Yeah, great question.
Just a question about, so you're talking about any agendas that we have right now around this session in this meeting, not general ones from the questions we answered above?
I suppose it could be either.
Okay.
I kind of designed this thinking in terms of, do you notice agendas embedded in the answers you came up with for the previous questions? But there might be something else. There may be also another agenda that you're noticing now as well. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, and asked a question in chat. Is wanting to notice my parts and feel self-energy for them also an agenda? Yeah, I'm considering that an agenda. Yeah. And again, not a bad thing that there's a part of you that wants to do that. And that can also be a self-led thing as well. But we're just calling it an agenda for right now because there's something inside of you that wants to do this thing. So great question. I hope that makes sense. And I had a feeling that there would be questions for this step. So thank you, everybody. Let me know if you need anything else. Yeah, thank you. I view an agenda as anything that wants things to be different than they are right now. And that's more or less what I was thinking with that word. I appreciate that definition. Thank you. I'm going to move on to step 7. And if you're still on step 6, that might be okay because it's going to take me a minute to read the instructions for step 7. It's sort of a choose your own adventure kind of step. There are some forks in the road with this one. So I hope that it makes sense. It's not too confusing. So just to start in this step, we will try to detect the influence of any parts that have an agenda or that want to change something. So if you produced an answer in the previous step, meaning if you found any agendas, that likely indicates the presence of a part. If you produced more than one answer, pick the agenda that you are most curious about right now. Turn your focus to the part of you that is holding that agenda. And that might simply mean, right now, focusing on the agenda itself and noticing the idea that it's coming from a part. This will be your target part for the rest of the exercise. This is where we get more than one way to do this step. If you did not produce an answer, if you did not notice any agendas that came up from the previous questions, notice how you feel at this moment in the exercise. What is it like to not have an answer from the previous question? If you feel anything other than acceptance about not having an answer, this also likely indicates a part of you that wants to keep up with this exercise or to do the exercise correctly. So turn your focus to this part of you and use that as your target part for the rest of the exercise. There's still more in here, and I'm going to give it plenty of time once I'm done reading all this. If you still do not detect a part with an agenda, just continue to follow along with the remaining steps of the exercise after this one. And with each step, ask yourself, what is it like to not have an answer after each prompt? To see if a new part of you comes to the surface. So if you feel anything other than acceptance of the fact that you don't have any answers to these next questions, that means there's a part of you, maybe it's frustrated with not keeping up with the exercise or feeling like you should have answers and not coming up with anything. So you can just do that with each remaining step. You might find in the next step you have acceptance for not having an answer, and then 2 steps down, you realize, oh, there's the frustration. There's the wanting to keep up. There's your target part. So once you find a part, if you don't have one right now, you can return to this step, step 7, and move forward from there. I'm going to add one more note. Yeah, yes, Jen, yes. I'm glad that people are asking to clarify the language around having the gent and what that is. Once you have found your target part, you might find that it is a thinking part in that it tries to think through the process of doing parts work. It may also be a self-like part if it wants you to have self-energy or any of the qualities of self, meaning compassion, curiosity, courage, clarity, creativity, connected, confidence, calm, presence, perspective, persistence, playfulness, or patience. If you haven't heard these before, they're what we call the 8 C's and the 5 P's of self-energy. So there may be a part that wants you to have those qualities right now. Regardless of if it's thinking or self-like or maybe something else, maybe something in between, whatever your experience of it is a part that is trying to influence you through thoughts, emotions, sensations, or behaviors, even if that influence is meant to be positive. So I get that this is a profoundly long step, but I was kind of thinking this is kind of like the meat and potatoes of kind of the idea of this exercise. So I'll give everybody a couple minutes with me not talking. Please feel free to ask me any questions that are coming up. There's a part of me that's like so relieved that seemingly that step made sense and no one's asking questions. I know it's complicated. Step 8, this is a multi-step. Now that you are focusing on a target part, note if you are experiencing any kind of activation in the following ways. And you may notice some answers that overlap between categories, and that's okay. So the first one is somatic. How are you experiencing this part through any physical sensations? And if so, what are those sensations and where do they arise in the body? I'm going to add some more here. How do you notice this part emotionally? Are there specific emotions that are arising? And how would you most accurately name those emotions? How about visually? You notice this part through any imagery that arises in your mind's eye as you focus on the part, even if the imagery does not seem related to the part right now. Now, cognitively, are there any specific verbal thoughts that you're experiencing as this part comes up? And do these thoughts seem to be coming from that part? And they might be complete sentences. They might be incomplete phrases. Just what do you notice cognitively? Okay, and also behaviorally, as you experience this part of you and focus on it, do you notice any urges to take some kind of action? So how is it influencing your behaviors? So you may have noticed step 8 is designed to be kind of like our big unblending step here. This is what we talk about when we're talking about unblending from a part. We unblend from it by noticing it. Right? You may have experienced that possibly while doing this step, noticing being able to see it more in front of you, so to speak, rather than blended with who you are. Given where we are with time, I want to make sure that there's plenty of time for questions and discussion. So I'm going to modify a little bit. If you're following along in the handout, I'm going to modify what steps we're doing just so that just for time's sake, and you'll see what I mean in a second. Oh, good. Thanks. So step 9, how do you feel toward the target part now? That's another important unblending question. There's a little bit that I put in at the end of step 9, now that you've taken a moment to feel toward the part. If you feel anything other than the qualities of self that I mentioned earlier, I can attach the handout again in a moment. If you feel anything other than the qualities of self towards the target part, this likely, so if you feel an agenda, this likely indicates the presence of another part. And that part is concerned about you getting to know the target part. So if that is happening for you, ask the concerned part what it would like you to know. Feel free to give it a moment to really communicate, and then once it's shared what it needs to share with you, ask if it's willing to relax enough for you to keep getting to know the target part. If the concerned part is willing to relax, and it does relax, you can just move on to the next step from here. If the concerned part is unwilling to relax, keep your focus on the concerned part, as it will become the new target part for the rest of the exercise. And we are approaching the end of the exercise because of how I'm modifying. But I'll give everybody a moment to work through this. And I'll also add the handout to the chat again. Okay, so that's a great question. Asking if there's a part that's excited to get to know the part, is that probably another part? It's possible, but that part doesn't sound concerned about you getting to know the target part. I think of excitement about getting to know something that sounds excited is not, it's not a C word or a P word, so it doesn't fit into the fun mnemonic device they made. But I feel like excitement to meet a part, that sounds like self-energy to me. So I hope that makes sense. Okay. Okay, great. And asking, what does it mean that my feelings are consistently compassionate for the part before while blended, as well as after unblending? That's interesting. Okay, this is a great question, and it's actually, you're catching me on some of the language that I use. I may have thrown some confusion in there. If you were already feeling compassion towards the target part before we went through step 8 and noticed all the way it's influencing, you might not have been very blended with the part before we got there. it may be present, but if you're feeling compassion towards it and you're saying, hey, it's okay that you're here, then that is being unblended to a degree, if not completely unblended. And you have qualities of self energy coming through. If you're saying, yeah, it's great that you're here. That's fine. I appreciate you. Does that answer your questions? Does that make sense? Okay, great. Yeah. Oh, nice. Yes. Excitement could be curiosity. And yeah, that's so cool when when it feels like the whole group of parts are feeling a cheering squad. That's always a nice sensation when that happens. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone have any other questions for step 9? I hope my talking didn't make it difficult for anyone to focus. I'm going to attach the handout into the chat again because someone was asking for it. If you're following the handout, I'm going to point this out anyway because of the numbering of the steps. I have so the next step, step 10. I kind of designed that as an optional set of questions depending on where we were at with time. I'm going to post them, but I'm going to say let's skip these questions for now. But when you get to this part in the process, when you are either with this concerned part and you're okay with getting to know it, or if you're with that original target part and you're feeling like it's okay that it's here, that's a nice time to ask some of these questions that are in step 10. So you can, that's one of the reasons why I want to post the handout again, because you can, if you're feeling like you're in a good spot and a safe place to do it later on, you can come back to these types of questions with whatever part it is that you've been getting to know in this exercise. Oh, there we go. So if there was time, the next step would be ask the part the following questions. Which qualities of self does this part want you to achieve, if any? It might not care about you having qualities of self, but it might. So we're just noticing that. What does the part want for you? What job has the part been doing to help get you there? Does it like doing its job? What does it think will happen if it stops doing its job? And what would it like from you, if anything? So these are questions that you can bookmark for later if you feel like you're going to be in a safe place to continue getting to know this part. But I'm going to keep moving on just so we have time to answer questions and have discussion. I'm also noticing the comment. Part is focused on to grow, desperate to grow and fix myself. To be okay in the world. At the end, felt sad for the part and a few tears. Is that another part, or is that compassion? Or is the part feeling hurt? I think it's feeling hurt. How do you see it? This is another great question. I do think that sounds like compassion to me. And if you are, it sounds like you are intuitively thinking, I think I'm just hearing the part and I'm feeling for it. Great. That's where you notice that your self-leadership is coming in. There may be, it's possible for other parts to have compassion for this one. And that's okay too. If they're present, if you notice, if it seems intuitively to you, like that might be a part of me, then great. But if it's allowing this one to be here and to tell its story, if it's allowing you to feel these tears and sadness towards the part, then that means that these other parts are not getting in the way of the part's work process. And so that's okay if this is another part. But there's a good chance that it's just you. It's just you being with this part and just feeling for it. Does that answer make sense? Okay, great. Thank you for the thumbs up. Awesome. Okay. So this might not feel, this question is initially designed to go after step 10. We're skipping step 10 for now, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What do you now appreciate about this part? And if so, send that appreciation. I messed up. I changed my phrasing midway through writing this. What do you now appreciate about this part? If you notice any appreciation, send that appreciation to the part. That's a good question. What's the distinction in step 10? And I wanted to describe step 10 so that step makes sense if you use it later. Asking what's the distinction between questions 2 and 6? So if you're asking the part, what does it want for you? And then also, what would it like from you? Those are the distinction would be, what does it want for you is like, what does it ultimately want for you? Does it want you to feel stable? Does it want you to feel safe? You know, what's kind of like the ultimate motivator for it to do whatever job it's doing? It may also, what would it like from you could be, how can you help it? Potentially. It might have an answer there. It might say, I'm doing this job because I really want you to feel safe, but doing this job is really hard. So could you do anything to help make this job easier for me or to give me a break? Does that distinction make sense? Awesome. These are really great questions, everyone. I really appreciate these. Okay. Now this is our last step. Step 12. Rate your self-energy one last time. What is it like to rate your self-energy this time? Do you notice any patterns about how your self-energy has shifted throughout the exercise? And again, that's the rating of 1 through 5. If you have the chat open, you should be able to scroll up and see the descriptors for that again. And yes, asking about having trouble opening or saving the handout. I believe the handouts are available on the website. I sent those into our Zoom tech to get that set up. I believe Bill will let us know how to do that. Yeah. So I'm gonna move forward at this point. If anyone is still working through the exercise at all, feel free to keep doing what you're doing. Feel free to even like mute your headphones if you need to, if you need a little bit more focus. But I did want to provide, we've got about 20 minutes left for questions and discussion. I'd like to encourage everyone. I realize it's a little bit different because our meeting's being recorded, but we'd like to ask everyone to please try to respect everybody else's privacy. So what other people share in this group, please don't share with others outside of it. Doing a nice job already of showing how to ask a question or share if you want to raise your hand. If you do just want to share something that you noticed, I encourage, because the number of people here, just to share kind of like the 1 or 2 particular insights. So we have time for everybody. If you are just doing a share, let me know at the end if you want feedback. Otherwise, I'll just plan on saying thank you and moving to the next person. And then, of course, if anyone has any questions, you can raise your hand too. Cool. I think that's all the prelude for this part. Go ahead.
Thank you, Brian. Great exercise. I loved writing directly on the handout. That helped so much for me. And here's my question. I started off with the hurry, 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 and it felt like a firefighter, but it seemed to turn into an exile. In the beginning, it was commanding energy, like, get down here, get the surgeon, rip the patient open, and go find what's wrong. And the more you guided us to focus on it, it became terror and panic and running around in little circles. And it seemed to become an exile. And as I just stay with that exile, then the self-energy comes through and the peace follows. But that's my question. How did the firefighter turn into an exile?
That's a really great question. So I think you're right on to notice that that's like really common energy for exiled parts. I'm also curious, one thing that might be helpful here is it actually an exile in the sense of are you aware of any other parts that have been like keeping this part kind of like shoved away? Because that's really how we define an exile. Does that make sense?
Ah,
It's an exile because it has been exiled by someone else, right?
uh-huh.
And
Well,
mhm.
I don't know. And I can also
enough.
respond to myself like, I don't really need to understand the labels and all. The experience was very nurturing and opening.
Yeah, cool.
It'll probably become clear later on.
Well, the one other thing that I'm thinking
Okay.
is that it could be the energy that you were feeling from it, the terror and everything. Maybe it's a firefighter and not an exile. I can't say for sure, but maybe what you were experiencing was its burden in the sense that that's the have to. It's the I have to hurry because if I don't, this fear will come true. And that can be something that motivates protectors.
Yeah.
Does
Thank
that
you.
resonate?
Uh-huh.
Sure.
Yeah.
Really great question. Yeah, thanks.
Just a comment. I had suspicions that I might have self-like parts, but you never know, right? Until you get in there and start asking. um, and what was surprising for me is it wasn't the part that I thought was the one that might be. It was a completely other thing that was unexpected, and I think it's a young protector part, but a really core part of really, really, really important core part. So I just want to thank you for this process. I feel like I've been doing this spiral, and I've come to a really significant point, and it was just a beautiful experience. Thank you. And lovely, the space that was held by you and the group has been noticeable. So thank you all.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you're talking quite now. It looks like you're muted at the moment.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Oh boy. I was sailing along, started at self-energy number 3, and now I felt like in 10 and 11, I dropped down to 2. And I realized that because 10 was a little bit more complicated and there was more stuff in it, that something very familiar kicked in, this sense of overwhelm. Too much to figure out. I'm thinking out loud here. Too much to figure out. I can't cope with all this. I've been noticing lately, doing some parts work with a dear friend, that there's a part of me that keeps throwing up confusion. And it's like my least favorite feeling almost. It's like confusion equals helplessness. So here I thought I was just sailing through all this, steps 1 through 9, and now 10, hit this like, I feel like my car went off the road. So any thoughts? My first thought was to just go through the whole process again later. But do you have any other suggestions about talking to this upset, confused guy?
Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing this. And And it's actually, I think maybe there's a part of me that worried that maybe this could be a risk of like sharing this part and not like providing the full space for us to really like do this step together.
It was just what I needed. There's a part of me that's thanking you.
Oh,
Sometimes this happens when I'm doing work with my friend, and she'll say something that kind of pokes me, and then she apologizes, and I say, no. This is apparently,
yeah.
I mean, in a safe space. I don't mind being poked. So
Sure. Okay, good. Well, thank you for saying that as well. I think, yeah, I think, and maybe this is something that maybe I could figure out how to like add this if I, maybe the next time I present it. That very last thing at the end of step 9, right? Where we say, okay, are you feeling anything else other than the qualities of self towards the target part while you're going through step 10? If you feel, to me, it sounds like there's confusion that comes up as you're trying to ask the target part these questions.
yeah.
I think there are like 2 possibilities, and you might intuitively know which one it is. It could be the target part itself is feeling the confusion. But I think I might have been hearing you say there's another part that gets confused when I ask these types of questions, and that part came in.
I think it's a protector that uses confusion. But then there's another part that feels powerless about the confusion.
Yes.
So there's a conflict there, obviously.
Yeah. You had one protector show up and then another protector show up right after that thing, right? One alerted the other. So I think you're right? And I think this means we slow down. And if we've got the time to keep doing the exercise now, then we do, right? I think you're right. Maybe we spend some more time doing this later in your free time and when you're feeling spacious enough. And maybe you start asking these same types of questions, going through these same steps with that part that feels powerless towards the confusion, right? Because that sounds to me kind of like the outermost like layer. That's the one that's like on top right now. It's like, I got confused and I don't like that. Well, both of these parts are still the exact same types of parts that we were looking for in this exercise. Right. So I think it's just a matter of being able to detect it. The fact that you've done this is really beautiful because now you have a sense of who to spend more time with. And generally, we just need to go through the protectors first before we can get to who we thought was the target.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I really, really appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, that's a common experience that comes up. It's not just you that has parts like that. And
by the way, I do breath work online, and I just had a very similar experience, which is that something that felt completely unmanageable and made a part of me feel alone suddenly opens up when I start sharing it. And I'm aware that I'm not as alone as I thought I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So somebody else mentioned the safe space that you're creating for us here. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll hop onto what you said earlier as well. I think everyone is sharing this space together. So I have appreciation for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. You know, I've been doing this for a bit, so I knew the reason I took this was I'm always in my head, yakety, yakety, yak, figuring it out, analyze paralysis. But today, so I could pretty much identify, oh, hey, manager, you're up. You want to talk? Well, yeah. But you know what I realized? Oh, my God, she's not even an adult. She's like a kid. And she's exhausted. When we went through, what are the emotions? Exhausted, scared, fearful. And to be able to say to her, oh my God, you are so little. I don't know. I mean, in kindergarten, I remember saying to my mom, I don't need you to take me. I know where it is. I go myself, and boom. So she's been trying to keep everyone safe, but she knows she's in over her head. And the lie is, I'm like, what are the thoughts? Well, that I'm alone and I'm powerless. And I'm in a big world. I don't know what to do, but so when I do these, like all my little parts are at the table, right? It's a family. And they were all so appreciative of how hard she's tried through the years to keep them safe. Because I said, well, what would happen if you didn't? And she goes, everyone would get hurt. So she's been trying to protect all the siblings. And she is tired. And so I was able to say to her, you know what, honey, I know you believe you've been on your own, but what if you weren't? Like, what if there was another source other than your little brain self to help figure out life? Because I always think of that intuitive part, the God part. And she's like, I would love that. Oh my God. I don't have to figure it out on my own. And then all my other little parts were at the table going, yes, yes, it's what we're trying to tell you. And we'll all participate because we love your help, but it's like it doesn't always, miss it. A lot it misses the mark a lot. So yes, we would love another source that we could learn to trust. So yeah, so peace, joy, relief. My body just feels like, oh, that poor little kid. And I think so much of us had that experience. We had to be adults as kids, but I was in way over my head. But she's never seemed to quit either. Like, for how long has she been doing this, honey? Well, a long time, but then my teenagers stepped in to help as well. We know where that goes. So it was very powerful. If you want to say, I'm already having to tell everybody this, even these two, I'm getting to feel my brain is full. I'm a little getting overwhelmed with all of this insight. So I'm already letting them know when we're done, because it's a lot to take in. We'll go play. Thanks.
I love that. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I definitely saw some smiles and nods while you were sharing all of that. That's so cool. Yeah, while there are no other hands up, I'm just looking at the chat here too. IFS workshops, especially experiential sessions like this, are so interesting for my parts due to the professional versus personal nature of learning for my career and supporting others, but also exploring my own internal world in tandem. Dude, as a presenter, yeah, yeah. I know it's so profound. Thank you for sharing that. The same experience of that confusion going along great, and then hitting a brick wall, and then gently coming back. And the peace in the beginning of the work is real, and it's money in the bank. Oh, I love thinking about it like that. Yeah, you can always come back to it, right? Yeah. And also offering, feeling that type of confusion too, in many places. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a really great shares, everyone. Thank you so much. We've got, I assume we have a 2-minute warning. I believe we do, after the 5 minutes that are remaining. So there's still time for probably 1 or 2 more questions or shares. Or if, yeah.
Hi everyone. I'm in Nova Scotia, so it's envious of all the California people. A perpetual question that I always have is to get into self energy, and then who is taking action, right? So when there's a moving forward with a decision, when you're stepping back and trying to get information from the parts, and definitely know sometimes there are parts led, but sometimes I feel like self is kind of listening, but I'm having a hard time differentiating between the two sometimes. So that's my question.
Yeah. How do we figure out if it's self and if it's a part? Yeah. I think so if I'm thinking about, what we're doing in the exercise, I'm wondering how the steps around noticing, is there any blocking of other parts happening? Is there any kind of, I want to make sure I'm feeling this and not feeling that. I wonder how much should that type of stuff like resonate with you while going through the exercise?
It does. Like the part I focused on was the ability to be here, kind of and take time for self. So attending trainings is kind of a safe way to take time for self. So, I guess it does still feel like a part that is, kind of taking the space. But again, I still have like, when is it that it's not from a part that is just like the intuitive right thing to do?
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna borrow from something that Bill has said that he believes about parts work, to kind of like reframe your question a little bit. He talks about he says that he believes that parts can have self-energy themselves, right? The energy of who I am can go through and come through my parts when those parts are unburdened. When my parts are saying, you know what, I don't have to do this, but I think it'll be nice, and there's that flexibility and that openness to try doing their jobs differently. They can still be a part of you, and they know, like, they may hold their own values that may be different from other parts of you that have different values, or they might just have values that just all of your system together says, yeah, that's where I'm at. That's what I believe. That's what's important to me. So I wonder if that makes sense at all, if that resonates, like the idea of there's this part of you that's like, yeah, I want to do this well. I want to do the process well. And it could be a part, and yourself is there with it. They might be kind of there simultaneously working together without any conflict with each other and without any conflict with any other parts.
Right. So yeah, the choice is kind of the word that's, the seed that's standing out for me with this.
Yeah. Choice is really nice. Yeah. Yes. And saying parts operating from the healthy system rather than the wounded system. Yeah. The IFS Institute, their logo is in the shape of a mandala. It looks kind of like a pie chart, but it's like flowing. Each wedge of the pie is actually quite like curvy and isn't like very rigid. And so it's like you've got yourself in the middle, you've got your managers, you've got your firefighters, you've got your exiles. And the boundaries are kind of like wavy and maybe a little porous, and that's what the unburdened system looks like. These are parts of you. They still make up who you are. They still make up what you do and what you care about. And they are open and flexible, and they work with each other. They're not just, going rogue and doing their own thing and shutting each other down. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great question. Thank you for asking that. Certainly right on theme with, what we're trying to explore with this exercise. Yeah. So we just got our 2-minute warning, and it's going to kick us out at the end of the 2 minutes, whether we want it to or not. Yeah, you bet. I really appreciate everyone's questions and comments. If anyone has like a quick, like 10 to 30-second thing, feel free to raise your hand, or we can just say our goodbyes for now, and you can feel free to leave the breakout room, head to the big room, start your lunch break a few seconds early, whatever works. But thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. This has been really nice.
Okay. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. I'm really glad that this has been helpful for so many folks. I'm always a little nervous since we have time. So is that nervous part of me as a presenter of like, is this exercise, is this going to work? I haven't used it in any other presentations before. I'm glad this was helpful. Oh, thanks. I guess I'll say one more time with the last few seconds as well. Just as a reminder, if you had trouble downloading the handout, if you want to take it with you, I believe it's either available on the website already. I don't know if there's an exercise like this in the new workbook. I kind of made it up myself, but I could ask Bill about it. All right, thanks everybody. See y'all.